13th?
I have no idea. I'm going to be drunk on January 12th.
January 13th on a Sunday, we're going to be live broadcasting at the grand reopening of the Boardwalk on Southwest 18th Street. It is on the northeast corner of Southwest 18th Street and Powerline Road. You like my geography skills right there?
I tell you, your hands are magical.
There's going to be a bouncy house. New York Sounds is going to be there. You'll see the big flag guys hanging. We're going to be there doing a live stream show.
There may even be a dunk tank.
A dunk tank, vendors. There are 9 restaurants at this location. It has been a $30 million renovation on Southwest 18th Street. The restaurants are amazing. Location, the lake. It is right in the Boca Point area. It is a free family fun event, and Blessed Paws are going to be there.
And you know what the best part of this thing is?
What?
The Brooklyn Cafe is going to be doing a show down there.
Live.
Come on down. Check it out from 1 to 4. Come and have some fun with us.
We'll see you at Southwest 18th Street on January 13th. See you there.
And don't be late.
1470 AM and 95.3 FM. Download the new WNN app to your phone from your app store and never miss a Talk 1470 AM 95.3 FM minute. Talk 1470 is WWNN Pompano Beach and 95.3 FM W237BD Boca Raton, the Health and Wealth Radio Network.
Hunger could be living next door to you. Hunger is found in every zip code, in every school, and every town. 1 in 8 Americans is food insecure. That's millions of children, working moms or dads, college kids, and retirees waking up each morning not knowing if they'll have enough food for that day. Together, we can help end hunger in our community. This station is part of the Beasley Best community of caring. Learn more about ways to help fight hunger in your neighborhood. Or, if you're food insecure, find resources at our website today.
Can you tell if this burger contains bacteria that could cause kidney failure? Listen. Can't, can you? You can't see it either. There's only one way to tell if you've cooked meat and poultry to a bacteria-killing temperature. Use a food thermometer. It's not an extra step or a nice to have. Raw or undercooked meat may contain bacteria that can make you very sick, or worse. 1 in 6 Americans will get sick from food poisoning this year, and roughly 3,000 will die. But you can keep your family safer by using a food thermometer every time. Learn more about this and other important information. Check your steps at foodsafety.gov. That's foodsafety.gov. A public service announcement brought to you by the U.S. Department of Agriculture, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and the Ad Council.
Need to get some rest. This is the worst headache ever.
Right arm's all tingly all of a sudden. Must have slept on it last night.
I keep losing my balance. These old bones need some exercise.
Granddaddy, what you just said doesn't even make sense. It sounds like gibberish.
Signs like these could be more than what they seem. They could be a sign of stroke.
Sudden weakness or numbness of the face, arm, or leg.
Sudden trouble with vision in one or both eyes.
Sudden trouble walking or difficulty with balance.
Or a sudden intense headache that comes out of nowhere.
If you or someone you know has any of these symptoms, don't wait. Call 911 immediately. You could make a difference in someone's life, someone you love, maybe even your own.
Time lost is brain lost.
Find out more at powertoendstroke.org. Brought to you by the American Heart Association, American Stroke Association, and the Ad Council.
Go to your app store and download the WNN app on your Android or iPhone. And never miss a Talk 1470 minute.
The opinions expressed on the following sponsored program are strictly those of the host, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of the station, its staff, management, or sponsors. Welcome to the Golf and Travel Show, the place to fine-tune your swing, dress for the course, club, or cruise, and get tips on the best places to play and stay at the right price. Vacation or staycation, host Dan Shub, along with his expert co-hosts and guests, will tell you where to go. To play golf and vacation, that is. Now, here's Dan.
Welcome to the Golf and Travel Show. I'm your host, Dan Schubin tonight, like we typically do. We're going to talk a bunch of golf, and we will talk some travel. And I've got some great travel deals that I'll send you away on the cheap a little bit later on in the show. But in just a few minutes, we will have a couple of cool guests that we'll be chatting with. First up in a few moments, we will be talking to golf course architect and the incoming American Society of Golf Course Architects president, Jan Beljan. And Jan has just completed a renovation, a total renovation at the Boca Lago Country Club, just down the road from where I'm sitting. And we're going to talk to her a little bit about that. And, of course, the exciting news of her becoming the president of the Society of Golf Course Architects as well. And I'm looking forward to this because the last time I spoke to Jan was like in the mid-'90s. So a lot has changed since then, when she was the top assistant to Tom Fazio, as it turns out. So she's come a long way, and it's been a while. So we'll catch up a little bit. And then a little later in the show, we'll be talking to returning guest, good friend of mine, the Table Tennis Hall of Famer, Scott Price. He just is back from the U.S. Open for table tennis, which is still taking place, just about finishing up, I guess, this weekend in Orlando. So we're going to hear a little bit about what was going on at the Open, as well as he's got a new sponsor. And the two of us had an opportunity to play golf this past weekend, up at Grand Cypress in Orlando. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And Mr. Price recently had a outing to Hawaii, where he had a chance to play a little bit of golf too. So we'll hear about all of Scott Price's travels and what he's been up to. Usually what we like to do is we talk a little bit about what's going on in the world of golf. Obviously, this time of year, not too much going on. As it turns out, on Sunday, when Scott and myself were playing golf at Grand Cypress, just up the road from us at the Ritz-Carlton Golf Course, was the final round of the PNC Father-Son event, which, of course, is it's not it's not a sanctioned event. It's what they used to call the silly season events. But the pros that get to play with their sons, grandsons, fathers, etc., to them, many of them say it's the best event of the entire year as far as they're concerned. It was quite an event. Davis Love III and his son Drew just shot up the field and broke a couple of records en route to a win. Drew has been playing so well, he's extremely close to getting his tour card, and if that were to happen, they'd have to break up the team because the sons or grandsons are not allowed to be on the tour. So we'll see what happens with that. Close behind in second was a great team as well, which was Big and Little John Daly's, the Big and Little John Daly show. And Little John is only 15, yet he can almost drive the ball as far as his father. And he was playing at least as well as his father, if not better. So there's another kid that potentially might make it to the tour. Of course, he looks like his dad. He dresses like his dad. He bombs the drives like his dad. So that was fun to watch as well. I watched a little bit of it on Saturday. Of course, I was out playing on Sunday, so I couldn't watch the way it turned out. But from what I heard, it was quite exciting. Also, last week, I mentioned that our local event here in Boca Raton, where I am sitting, which is an event on the Champions Tour, got a new name, a new sponsor, a new title sponsor. So now it's the Oasis Championship, and they are starting to get commitments from the players are starting to come in. Of course, the local five-time Charles Schwab Cup champion Bernhard Langer, of course, is going to be playing. He was at the press conference when they announced the new title sponsor. He's been the player of the year on the Champions Tour records 7 times, and he won the event in 2010. Also, Mark McCarron, who won last year, is going to be playing again. Colin Montgomery has made an announcement that he's going to be playing. Mark Calcavecchia is going to be playing in the event as well. So it looks like they're really starting to shape up their field, and it'll be a great one. So hopefully you all will get a chance to go check it out. It's February 4th through the 10th, and you can get more information by going to oasischampionship.com. An interesting story about a place that I'm slightly familiar with, not extremely familiar with. I was supposed to stay there I ended up staying up the block a little ways. Somebody who worked for me many years ago, writing for me when I had my magazine for Florida, he got to stay and review Amelia Island Plantation, which is up in the northeastern part of the state. And it seems that when the Omni Hotel Group purchased this hotel many years ago, they had made an agreement to maintain their oceanfront course, which has 5 holes that are on the ocean. It seems that they haven't been getting enough play to maintain the course, so they started bulldozing some of the holes. And it seems that they may have, they claim that they were going to be building a park. People didn't quite believe that. It seems that there was talk about some condos that were going to be built there, but they were dragged into court, and as part of this agreement that they had made back in 2010 when they acquired the property at a bankruptcy, it stated that they had to maintain the golf course, and it didn't have like a limit as far as the amount of time or how long that they had to maintain this golf course for. So it seems that now the courts are forcing them to rebuild whatever it was that they bulldozed and bring it back to the way it's supposed to be, and hopefully they will bring it back to the way it was many, many years ago when it was in better shape than it seems to be now. But like I say, I didn't get a chance to play it. Some of the players that play it on a regular basis, I heard mixed reviews, and mainly just due to the conditioning of the course. So if they could bring it back, they say that the views, those 5 ocean view holes, are supposedly absolutely beautiful. So it's a win for golfers, I suppose. Yet I also understand the problem that golf course owners have in today's world, that maintaining a golf course is an expensive proposition. And if you can't get enough people to play it to support the cost of maintaining it, there's a problem there. So I kind of see both sides of the story. And I guess in just a few minutes when we talk to golf course architect Jan Beljan, we can find out a little bit more about what it actually takes to take an older golf course and maintain it and renovate it, and how much it costs to do that. So she would be a better person than I for that. So we're going to be talking a bunch more golf, of course, with Jan Beljan in just a few minutes. We're going to be talking with our later on guest, Scott Price. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump for the next few minutes to a little bit of travel news, because we're not going to have too much time for that later in the show. Of course, today, being the Friday prior to the Christmas holiday, is one of the busiest days for travel of the year, especially on the highways. And AAA keeps me up to date on what's going on with the highways, and keeps me up to date on what's going on with the cost of gas. And, of course, the price of oil has a lot to do with airfare costs, but it also has a lot to do with people driving their cars and how many people are on the roads, and what it costs to drive to whether it's a vacation or to visit friends and family. And the good news is that the price of gas right now is incredibly low. Actually, folks in Florida are paying about $10 less for a full tank of gas compared to when prices peaked just last summer. And just in the past 10 weeks, prices have dropped at the pump a total of about 56 cents. So that's good news. It's probably going to drop another 5 to 15 cents. And I've been reading that the oil companies are starting to panic a little bit, because if it gets much lower, it doesn't pay to drill for the oil any longer. So if our folks here in our country stop drilling, if everybody stops drilling, well, we're going to have the opposite effect, and the prices are going to start going up. But the good news for people who like to travel, whether it's by plane or whether it's by car, it's cheaper now than it's been in a long, long time. So you may as well take advantage of it. And keep in mind as well that AAA, I believe for the holidays, once again, you can go to AAA.com and check it out. But typically, if you've had a bit too much to drink, I believe Budweiser sponsors a towing program where rather than getting behind the wheel, you can get a free tow. So you may want to keep that in mind. We want everybody to celebrate and drive to visit their friends and relatives and go to some cool places to vacation, but we also want everybody to be safe as well. All right, I think what we are going to do is we are going to take a quick break, our first break of the night, and then you're not going to want to miss this. We're going to be talking to Jan Beljan. She's one of the most noted golf course architects in the country, and she's fresh off of a great renovation job that she did just up the road from here. So we're going to hear all about it. You're not going to want to miss it, so stay tuned, and we'll be back with more of the Golf and Travel Show.
I'm not smart enough. My resume's not up to date. They'll never pick someone like me. No one's hiring right now. Sound familiar? Don't let you get in the way of landing your next job opportunity. Sometimes it's best to leave it up to the experts. Did you know that the last reported job openings in the U.S. as of this recording was a series high of 6.7 million jobs, and that 1.1 million of those jobs were left unfilled? This means that there's a potential opportunity that's just right for you. And at Labor Finders, we're committed to helping you find it. Whether you're entering the workforce or looking for supplemental income in a job that starts right away, we got you covered. With over 300,000 clients across the U.S. and 20,000 active daily workers, we have the network and the experience to get you your next job. Contact one of our nearly 200 offices today to see how we can help in your job search. Simply visit us online at www.laborfinders.com or connect with us on social media by searching the username LaborFinders.
And we are back, and it's been a while since I've had an opportunity to talk to this young lady. She was a very young lady at the time, the last time we spoke, but it's been a while. I haven't forgotten her, and she's doing some great work locally, and we're going to hear all about it. And the person I'm talking about is the golf course architect and incoming president of the Golf Course Architect Society of America, I believe, and without further ado, I'd like to introduce to you all Jan Beljan. Jan, are you there?
Hi, Dan. Good to talk with you. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. As I briefly mentioned, I think it was around 23 years ago the last time we spoke, believe it or not. It's been a long time. You helped me out with an interview that I was doing with your boss at the time, Tom Fazio.
Sure, yeah, I remember.
That
was that was a while back, but I'm pleased to say that we're both still here.
We are still here, and I guess back then I think you guys were based in the Carolinas, was it?
No, Tom his office had been in Tequesta, Florida.
Oh, it was here. Okay, maybe it was a project in maybe like Pinehurst or something was being worked on at the time, or for some reason I have a Carolinas thing in my head.
And you're right, because in the mid '80s. He did open an office in the Carolinas, and actually I helped him do that, and then came back to Florida after a couple of years.
Okay, so you're back in Florida, in Jupiter now, and I know that this new job that you're taking as president of the Golf Course Architect Society, I believe you're replacing a fellow who's also from Jupiter who I spoke to not long ago, right?
Well, actually, you probably spoke with John Sanford,
yes.
And he's the immediate past president.
Uh-huh.
Jeff Bloom is currently in Texas, and he's the current president. And in May, I will advance to the position of president. So,
well, you've come a long way.
Yeah, I should say. Yeah, well, you know how it is with anytime you're on a volunteer board, and that goes for clubs too. I mean, there is a rotation, so they want to have people there with some stability, and they want to have history. So it's a 4 or 5 year commitment in most things. So at this point, I'm in year 3, and next year will be year 4. Then you stay on to be the immediate past president and lend whatever kind of historical guidance that you can to the people coming behind you.
Very nice. So I was just briefly talking about the course up at Amelia Island Plantation, the Ocean Course, that somehow they had some issues with. And I had mentioned that these older golf courses, they they're not easy to maintain, and eventually you got to renovate them. And I'm assuming there's a lot of work to be done and a lot of cost that's involved. And that kind of brings us to your current project that's just down the road from where I'm sitting, which is over at Boca Lago Country Club. And I believe that course was built back in 1975. So it's obviously it's an older course, and older courses have character, but they need some work. So why don't you explain a little bit about what it was like when you first got called to take a look at the golf course, and you decided what you needed to do and what happened?
Well, it's so much like golf course renovation has some similarities to a house renovation.
Mm-hmm.
Most of us who have been in a house for any length of time, we say, "Oh, well, that's not up to date." Perhaps aesthetically or perhaps the way society works. But as you can imagine, plumbing changes, electrical needs change, and those things happen on a golf course too. So if you think about what any house vintage 1975 might have been, and what the power sources may have been, and how many electrical outlets you had, and what the lighting may be. All of that is completely different now. And so the same is true on a golf course, where the demand for irrigation is the same, but it's the placement of water is much more precise because the irrigation heads have advanced.
Sure.
So one of the big things is the irrigation system on this property. There were 36 holes. There are now 27, but I've been able to expand the practice range itself and create 2 practice holes plus a multiple short game areas. But the big driver of this renovation was the irrigation system. You've heard of arteriosclerosis, right?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And that's where your arteries and veins will get smaller. The interior diameter gets smaller because you have a buildup of plaque.
Yep.
Well, irrigation systems experience something similar. Because remember, they're drawing water either out of the ground or they're drawing it from a lake, and whatever's in there over time will ultimately make those pipes have a smaller diameter. Things will get caught on the inside. So that means even if you have enough pressure, you don't have enough water coming out to do the proper irrigation. So the head placement was inadequate for what the pressure was. The pipe sizing was inadequate. And so the new irrigation system was what precipitated the rest of the golf course renovation.
Yeah, I have a question before you go too far. When you're talking about water, obviously now you're talking about putting more water out on the golf course, or at least the right amount in the right places. But what about getting rid of the water? I'm assuming that drainage and things like that here in Florida, especially with the heavy rains that we get, that probably was something you had to look at as well.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, the drainage is. That's one of the top three items we think about: drainage, right? So if the golf course doesn't drain, then you really have a difficult time maintaining it. So yes, drainage was the other part of it. Now, what was interesting about this project is in 1975, and if you know where Boca Lago is, which is immediately west of the Turnpike and south of Glades Road. Think about what else might have been there in 1975.
Probably not much.
That's right. That's exactly right. And so, and how things were planned then, and everything is planned and has to be permitted. So the local and the state governments dictate what the areas are that you have to have for surface area for water, and then for handling drainage, not just for the golf course, but for the real estate that's around the golf course. And this applies anywhere. This is not just particular to this golf course. So the lakes that are there were dug, and they helped build the pads to elevate the housing and the roads above the golf course. And in essence, almost every golf course everywhere serves to manage the drainage, serves as flood control for the housing and the roads that are around every golf course. Did you know that?
Of course I did. So
of course you did, but
of
some
course
people
I did.
didn't, I'm sure.
I'm sure not. Now another thing, and again, I'm no golf course designer. I barely managed to get out and play halfway decent once in a blue moon. But another thing that I know is important, of course, is the grass and the size of the greens. Grasses are much different. You know, they've invented new grasses since 1975 that are perhaps more durable. And I know the other problem is that the greens tend to get smaller and smaller because they get infiltrated by the grass that surrounds them. So I'm guessing that there was a lot of that had to be addressed as well.
Well, that's right. That was the other thing. Once the decision was made to do new irrigation, then let's figure out how we can do the least amount of irrigation because there are better turf types.
Mm-hmm.
So the turf type that is in the fairways now is called Latitude 36. It was developed in Oklahoma. So as you might imagine, it has better cold tolerance than something that may have been developed further south.
Mm-hmm.
So the color on it is really, really rich, and it's a brilliant green, and it's just beautiful to look at, and better, even more important, it's better to play from which to play.
So does it not go dormant at all in the winter down here? Does it not require overseeding, or it does eventually?
No overseeding. No overseeding.
It doesn't.
If it goes, I wouldn't say that it would go dormant, but it may go off color if we get some temperatures in the 30s there.
Mm-hmm. Which are rare.
Because Bermuda grass is a warm season grass. It's not a cool season grass, but it's not so cold. It doesn't get cold long enough, frequently enough for the turf type to go off color.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the point, is that even when we get some of those very cold days, for 2 or 3 in a row, it's not going to shut down making chlorophyll, and because sometimes you'll see some turf turn purple, and all it is the chlorophyll just kind of going back into the roots, so that it preserves itself. The chlorophyll is what how the grass grows. You need to have sunlight. You need to have warm temperatures for the warm season grasses. So we have Latitude 36 on the fairways, and then we have a Tiff Grand, which is another kind of developed turf that is on the collars, and that separates the Latitude from the putting surface, which is the Tiff Eagle. Tiff Eagle is one of the more recent. Well, right now it's been around about 20 years, and it's probably the standard for ultra dwarfs. There's Mini Verity and there's Champion and Tiff Eagle. Those are probably the preeminent grasses that are used in the South for putting greens. So Tiff Eagle is on the greens and is looking pretty good, and we've got Tiff Grand also on the tees because it just maintains a shorter height, and so it's really a nice surface from which to tee off.
So all this technical talk is great for the folks that really, really get it, but a country club is full of members, and members can be a little bit difficult sometimes. So you make all these changes, and then all the members come out and they play, and what happens? Did you get any feedback from the folks? Were they difficult to please? Were they excited? What happened?
Well, the feedback so far is everybody is happy. Everybody's happy because, it wasn't just changing the turf types, but it was changing the contours.
Mm-hmm.
When the golf course was done, I think there was one renovation to the greens or one regrassing of the greens since 1975. But most of the contours in the putting greens were vintage 1975. And you might say, well, so who cares? Well, in 1975, what do you think the stimp meter reading was?
I have no idea. Very slow compared to today, I bet.
That's correct, and so that means that any time if you had a stimp meter that would of 8, that's what you designed for, then that means that you probably had some pretty steep slopes. When you have steep slopes and we get the cold weather and windy days in the winter that are dry, then balls just move without you even touching them. The greens speed up really, really fast. So with contemporary mowing heights and the green speeds that are somewhere between, I think, 10.5 and 11 or 11.5 is what they're keeping the greens.
Mm-hmm.
Then we had to mellow the contours so that we had enough hole locations. The greens were enlarged. As you said, they do get smaller. The same thing happens with tees,
mm-hmm.
but peculiarly, bunkers get bigger.
Mm.
So you end up having to be much more precise when you play on a golf course that has had some age to it because the greens are smaller and the bunkers are bigger.
Wow. There's so much more to this game of renovating golf courses than the average golfer would ever think about, I'm sure. And obviously it's a huge undertaking. And I'm glad to hear that the members are thrilled. And what we're going to do is we're just about out of time for this segment. So we've spent a lot of time talking about the golf course, and I'm sure everybody wants to play it. So what we're going to have to do is later in the show, I'm going to talk a little bit more about the rest of the country club and how folks can play, because there are opportunities to become a member, but there are some opportunities to play this golf course even if you're not a member. So we're going to cover all that a little bit later.